Hello, everybody. This is Mark Smith with Family Tree Counseling Associates. I'm coming at you from the beach of South Carolina. Um, uh, we came back and found that our beach home was still here and was not flooded. There was one branch broken on one tree. So um, the Weather Channel's prognostication of roofs being ripped off and floodwaters being up to your neck was greatly exaggerated as it turned out. Um, I apologize, I haven't been making videos. What with being evacuated last a couple weeks ago uh, for Hurricane Florence, and driving to Jacksonville, driving to Orlando, flying to Indianapolis, flying back to Orlando, driving back here. And then when there's floodwaters predicted, you have to go through your house, and everything that's 3 feet, 4 feet, you got to unplug it and uh, put it somewhere, hopefully where the roof won't, you know, fly away with it and it won't get wet. So uh, it's taken us quite a while to fix the damage Hurricane Mark did on our house, preparing it for floodwaters. So, but anyway, I'm back, and I was speaking with a client the other day, and this is a client who is real advanced, and frequently, if she says something really poignant, I'll say, I think I have another video just from what you said, and she goes, "Go for it, dude. You know, you're free to take my ideas and run with them." But she used the phrase post-traumatic injury, and it really resonated with me. I really don't like the phrase post-traumatic stress disorder. It's not a disorder, okay? If you've been set on fire and chopped up with knives, and you're screaming, that's actually quite orderly. It makes a lot of sense if you're lit on fire and cut up, that you would be screaming in horror. So, the whole calling it a disorder. There's something. It's like there's something wrong with you, and yeah, there is something wrong with you. But I like the word injury. You've sustained an injury. That says it better. It's really not about stress. Do we have a lot of stress? People who have post-traumatic injury issues, we got a lot of stress. Dear God, we have a lot of stress. We have anxiety, we have panic attacks, um, we have just uncountable symptoms of this, and many times it comes about as a result of narcissistic abuse. But um, it's really not about stress. We're not struggling because we have too much stress. Oh, poor guy, he has a stress disorder. He's just got too much stress in his life. No, that ain't it. It's a profound psychological wound, and it's also a profound physiological wound. In January of 2016, I made a video and I called it Narcissistic Abuse is a Wound to Living Tissue. So that is a good, and go back and watch that video. I just rewatched some of it, and it doesn't cover what I'm going to cover today, but it touches on it. That it really is a wound in your body. You can't see it, You can't see the wound in your body, but it really is physiologically in your body. So many people I talked with said that they had pain in their chests, and that's where I stored my pain. But other people sort of store their pain in different areas. I'm going to read a quote. I saw it from the University of Florida, their medical um, uh, facility there has this quote, and it's talking about traumatic injury. It says, traumatic injury is a term which refers to physical injuries of sudden onset. And what I'm wanting you to do with this quote is translate the physical injury to the psychological and physiological injury. So um, frequently it's a sudden onset. I get complex PTSD where obviously we were narcissistically abused as children, and then we pick a variety, numerous perhaps, narcissistic abusers, and uh, we've been subjected to many forms and many instances of trauma, and it becomes complex post-traumatic injury. There's a phrase for you: complex post-traumatic injury. Um, so go on with this quote. It's sudden onset and severity which require immediate medical attention. When I work with people who just found out the narcissist has just taken off their mask and you found out horrific things, then I I try to get them to understand it's just like they've been in a motorcycle accident and they've sustained a head injury. They don't need to get up and go to work. I sustained such a horrific emotional and physiological injury in April of 2015 and early May of 2015. And it was 3 weeks later that I realized how profoundly damaged I was and I shouldn't be working. I couldn't work. And I went off to a treatment center. But so these traumatic injuries, they have a sudden onset and they have a severity that require immediate medical attention. The insult, I like that. The insult may cause systemic shock called shock trauma. Oh my God, that applies, doesn't it? Shock trauma, and may require immediate resuscitation and interventions to save your life and limb. Traumatic injuries are a result of a wide variety of, get this, blunt, penetrating, and burn mechanisms. And think of that in terms of psychological wounding and trauma and injury. So these people, their weapons are blunt, their weapons are penetrating, and their weapons burn. And that resonated with me because that's the best way I could describe it. Is somebody came along and they took a can of gasoline, poured it all over you, and they lit you on fire. Then they ran you over with a car, and then they stabbed you 50 times. That's how it feels psychologically. So the injuries, the insult may cause systemic shock and may require immediate resuscitation and intervention. And traumatic injuries are a result of a wide variety of blunt, penetrating, and burn mechanisms. They include motor vehicle collisions, sports injuries, falls, natural disaster, and a multitude of other physical injuries. And they require immediate care. So I'm still stunned when I Googled this term post-traumatic injury, and it was coming up with mainly concussions and also military looking people making videos. And it was more about physical injury or post-traumatic, what they call stress disorder, um, as a result of combat. But there was no mention of what's the number one cause of post-traumatic injury? Relationships, relationships with narcissists, by far. Take all the wars that are going on now, all the wars that have gone on for the last 50 years, and I'm sure, many millions have suffered post-traumatic injury, but the number of people who've been harmed by narcissists in their childhood and their adult life is many, 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 many times what the impact of warfare is. It's not even close. So I wanted to show you a picture and a quote that I found on Facebook. And very, very, very profound. This is what I'm saying. And so here it says, the axe forgets, but the tree remembers. It's an African proverb. The axe, the perpetrator of injury, forgets, but the tree, if the tree lives, is going to have scars in it forever. The scar wound in that tree, you'll be able to see hundreds of years later. This made me wonder, this woman that this narcissist I was involved with from 2008 to 2015, does she sit around and think about how she's harmed Mark Smith? No, she doesn't. The axe forgets. It's the tree who remembers. And so, folks, post-traumatic injury that is really deep and really profound, it's not healable 100%. Anybody tells you they're healed 100%, they're totally full of shit. Just tell them I said so. Totally, completely full of shit. You can heal yourself to a great degree. And when I say heal yourself, I do mean that you're the one in charge of treating yourself. You're your own doctor when you have post-traumatic injury. Okay, now I wanted to read a quote. I found this on it was a Canadian Armed Forces channel, and it's a quote from a veteran of the Canadian Armed Forces. His name is Joel. I don't know how to say his last name. Guiadon, it looks like. Joel says he was diagnosed with PTSD in 2006, and it wasn't until he tapped into a growing movement calling it post-traumatic stress injury that he began to feel hope. So Joel Guiadon said, when we say an injury, for me, there's an automatic sensation that I don't feel as bad about it when I call it an injury. Do you get that? He says it's liberating. Joel completed tours in Bosnia and Afghanistan, and PTSD eventually ended his military career in 2008. He says even then he didn't feel the word disorder accurately described what he was experiencing. It felt like an injury. It felt like something I had sustained. I was in a hyper state of vigilance, had a constant adrenaline rush, either felt numb or extremely angry, had frequent nightmares, as well as being unable to sleep. Meanwhile, the Canadian Armed Forces is already behind the growing movement embracing the term post-traumatic stress injury. And I want to take the word stress out of it and just call it post-traumatic injury. Oh, sorry. So here's a quote from the Mayo Clinic talking about PTSD. And they said, here's the common events: combat exposure, childhood physical abuse, sexual violence, physical assault, being threatened with a weapon, or having an accident. The Mayo Clinic talking about PTSD and vicious, manipulative, evil, lying, cheating, stealing, hiding their real selves, evil motherfuckers don't even get mentioned. You know, they don't even, it's like a blind spot in our culture. And it's an epidemic. And I think there's 1,000 people injured in relationships for everybody injured with all these other things put together. It's not a scientific research on my part that causes me to say that, but do I got a little spot on mine? There, spit shine that rascal. So my next point is, when you walk around in the world with this wound in your living tissue, even well-meaning people, you really have to protect yourself, because if you don't protect yourself, I didn't spit shine the right side. If you don't protect yourself, then even well-meaning people, it's like you're fragile, and you're going to be mind fucked by people, and you can't put yourself in situations where it's unsafe. I remember fairly early on, one of my daughters was at IU, and it was Dad's weekend, and one of the activities was there was a bar crawl. You know what a bar crawl is? A bar crawl is you go with your daughter and the other dads and the other daughters, and the music is so loud you can't hear yourself think, and it triggers your PTSD. You're smushed shoulder to shoulder with a bunch of arrogant little 21-year-olds, and you're paying, $10, $12 a drink, and you get drunk. And I told my daughter, I love you, but I'd rather take a stick through the eye than go on a bar crawl. But I did. I went not 1 year, but 2 on these bar crawls, and it was torturous. So I remember there were days I couldn't play basketball because my hands were trembling. And there's where I play basketball, there's this vicious little narcissist. He's a good basketball player, but he's real narcissistic and real abusive. And I couldn't be around him because I was fragile, because I would either become even more traumatized, or I might kick his ass. And there's laws against going around kicking people's asses. So there were days I just couldn't put myself in that situation. So let's talk a little bit about the recovery process for you know, post-traumatic injury. And there's several, there's many things that I need to tell you about the recovery process that in many of my videos in the past I've covered these, but some of you might be new. Some of you might just have been shattered, and you might not understand how to go about getting help and getting better. So let me just spell it out for you. Um, Number one, get help immediately. You are not well. You are shattered. You're not mentally ill. You're not necessarily fragile before this happened to you, but you are fragile now, and you're not well. And you should take time off of work. One of the best things you could do is um, um, maybe not the first week. I think the first week you need to spend a lot of time with a therapist and with people who understand your disorder. But if you could go to a really good treatment center, and I recommend on-site. It's more of a workshop place. It's near Nashville, Tennessee, on-site, and they have um, week-long workshops on healing trauma, on healing love addiction, and then they have a general one that is really powerful that everyone should go to. What's that one called? Living Centered, I think. Um, in a perfect world, you'd take 3 months to 6 months off of work. You'd accumulate a large team uh, as your treatment team, because you'll need a therapist, an EMDR therapist, a psychiatrist, 12-step people, and you need about 10 people on speed dial who understand your issues and who give you a lot of support. Um, but you're the one in charge of treating your own injury. Um, when you get an injury, you'll go to the emergency room, a physical injury, and they'll dress it out and put some stitches in it, but who treats it from then on? You do. In the middle of the night, if you're seeping pus out of your wound, uh, you're probably not going to run to the emergency room every 5 minutes. You're going to take some antiseptic and you're going to put it on there and change the dressing, and maybe take some pain medication and take some antibiotics, and you're the doctor. Last night I was feeling stressed as a result of just a busy 3 days of, actually 2 days of seeing clients, but very intensive, and tired from just the stress of hurricane dodging. And I hadn't had a chance to work out in a week. So my wife and I, there's a Planet Fitness here. There's one right by our office, but there's also one here in Myrtle Beach. And I don't call it Planet Fitness. I call it my post-traumatic injury treatment center, because they not only, and it's $21 a month. I'm giving these guys a plug because many of you say, well, I can't afford fancy treatments, but you can turn a gym like that into a treatment center. Let me tell you how. So I did some elliptical stuff. I did the rowing machine. I lifted some weights. I got up a good sweat. My wife and I rowed together, with the rowing machine. But they also have these massage beds where it's hard to describe. They sort of shoot hot water up, but the water doesn't hit you, but you can feel it. And it's very efficient, and you get a really nice, good, soothing 10-minute massage There's sun tanning beds, which I find very soothing. There's massage chairs. So what I do is I get a really good workout, which is one of the best things you can do for your post-traumatic injury is exercise often. When I first was suffering from this and I was at the treatment center in June and July of 2015, I would get up in the morning and lift weights at 6 a.m. every morning, never missed it. And then at 4:30, when we were done with the intensity of the group work, I'd grab my basketball and I would dribble and run for 2 or 3 miles. And then I would walk in a circle around this like sacred, there's a name for it. There's a little altar there. You go around in this maze thing. It's where I asked my wife to marry me, as a matter of fact. But uh, you are in charge and of taking care of yourself. So between the exercise and then I got on the massage bed twice, did the massage chair and did the sun tanning. And so and I do it at a leisurely pace. So 2 hours later, I'm chilling. I'm feeling good. Between the exercise and the massage, it changes the whole feel of my body. And so I went in there jumpy and nervous and stressed, and I left calm and peaceful and happy. Uh, I've shared this, before that the most effective treatment for me when I was raw after shattering was massage. I had a very intuitive massage therapist, and um, I was fortunate enough to have her, as soon as she touched my chest and it just felt like there was healing in her hands, I would weep the whole hour and a half. And then I'd come back the next day and get another massage. And it wasn't about massage, it was about engaging and healing the wound. When I went to my post-traumatic injury treatment center last night, it wasn't about getting exercise, it was about treating the wound, treating the injury. Um, when I was in the treatment center, it'd be yoga night, and I'm not good at yoga, and I really don't enjoy doing it, but I enjoy the results of yoga. So I would make myself do that. Hour and a half later, I would feel peace. I would feel a tranquility that I hadn't had. Something that's cool is last Friday, I was able to play basketball, and it's been a year, 3 years and 3/4. I was sneaking up on 4 years since my shattering, and I was able to play basketball with a great deal of confidence and strength. I'd been in a little bit in the weight room, and I was sort of tossing my boys around like rag dolls. I was fouling a lot, but we have unlimited fouls. I was using every one of them. And one fella went up for a shot, and I somehow ripped off his knee brace. I was getting so physical with the guys. But I'm just saying that it was a lot of joy to be able to just play aggressively and with a great deal of physical strength and to not be crippled by fear and panic attack. Very cool. There's a lot of crying involved in healing this profound traumatic injury. Cry, 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 cry. You can't cry enough. Expressing anger, not at people. I used to take a tennis racket and hit a couch. I used to take boxing gloves and hit a punching bag. I used to drive along in a car and scream at the top of my lungs, which is that's one way of expressing your anger, and it doesn't hurt anybody. Now I was in a convertible, so it looked a little strange. I wouldn't do that, but meditation, download Bella Ruth Napperstack. Bella Ruth Napperstack. Napperstack starts with a N, and from iTunes. She has many uh, 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 video, or not videos, but audio recordings of like for post-traumatic stress, for loss, for depression, for anxiety. That she just leads you through those, and they're guided imagery. So those of you who don't have experience meditating, you can do this. This is easy. Plus, she has additional affirmations that you can say. So, but very, very powerful stuff. Medication. I take medication still, and it's still helpful. And I don't feel bad if again, if you had some kind of lingering physical injury that damaged some kind of organ in your body, and you had to take medication to address it, you wouldn't feel bad about that. This is the same thing. Recovery from a post-traumatic injury takes a long, long time, and you'll never be 100% cured. Like I said, it's sneaking up on 4 years for me, but twice during this hurricane dodging, I drove all night, and then I was dealing with a lot of chaos, and some of my symptoms came back. I started having really bad nightmares, ugly nightmares, and I started thinking about this woman again, and my heart started hurting. Why? Because I was in a place where I hadn't gotten enough rest, and that can re-engage your post-traumatic injury. Get some EMDR, some rapid eye movement therapy. Of course, do lots of talk therapy. Watch lots of videos. Read the book Psychopath Free by Jackson McKenzie. That's what sort of turned it around for me. But what you're doing is you're treating your own wound. And what was lovely for me was during the very early part of my wounding, before we were ever even thinking about being in any kind of a relationship, my wife was just a friend, but she helped tend to my wound. And if you're fortunate enough to have a friend or a somebody who's also in recovery, or a significant other or a spouse to tend to you, she really did save my life. And I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for I got help. I was not only treating my wound, she was treating my wound as well. So you're not treating a disorder, you're not mentally ill, you're not damaged goods, you're treating a wound. And you have to do it every single day. By the way, I want to mention um, someone asked, is CBD oil taken from cannabis? But it's not cannabis, it's completely legal. You can go in just about anywhere and buy it these days. There's no THC in it, there's no psychoactive drug in it. But so someone asked me if that's helpful for treating PTSD. The answer for me is yes. I use CBD oil every day, and it gives my system another way to soothe. I can't always get in the hot tub. I can't always exercise. I can't always meditate. I can't always, um, play basketball. But this wonderful tool called CBD oil, and you don't have to take much, and you don't have to take it very strong. What it does for me is it helps me sleep better, and it also soothes my system. So you're treating the wound, you're not treating a disorder. So that's all I had to say. Gone a little bit long here. Um, uh, check out our website, familytreecounseling.com. I've got books on there. I've got a book on narcissistic abuse syndrome. I've got a book on abandonment issues that's really good. I got a book on healing shame, mainly between couples. I got good books on affair recovery and on marital issues. So God bless you guys. I hate that you've had to sustain this horrific injury in your heart, in your body, in your soul, in your spirit, but just put one foot in front of another and have courage and get all the help you can from as many people as you can and keep crying, keep yelling, and you will get better. I'm happy these days, and I'm not psychologically crippled like I was for a long time. So there's a great deal of hope, but it comes a little at a time, and it comes with a great deal of concerted effort on your part. Thank you for watching today. God bless.